Jalen Hurts' college career is over. And I have no idea what's going to happen to Jalen Hurts' career as a quarterback in the NFL. But I want to celebrate Jalen Hurts' college career. As a quarterback, he had a special career in college. It starts in the 2016 season. Jalen Hurts was a freshman quarterback at Alabama, and he led his team to the national championship where they lost. As a freshman, Jalen Hurts lost the national championship to Deshaun Watson and Clemson 35-31. Now, the next year, in his sophomore year, he got Alabama back to the national championship. Again, for the second year in a row, Jalen Hurts found himself the starting quarterback of Alabama in the national championship game. Playing Georgia against Alabama, national championship, the 2017 season. But at halftime, Alabama was losing 13-0. And so what Alabama did was benched Jalen Hurts, their starting quarterback, and they put in freshman quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And freshman Tua was phenomenal. He led them back into the game, and Alabama won the national championship. They beat Georgia, shocked the world. Came back from behind with a freshman quarterback off the bench. And the way that Jalen Hurts handled being benched is the reason why we're talking about him. We're going to get into his accomplishments, the things he did as a player and his statistics, and that's amazing. But the way Jalen Hurts handled being benched is something I will never, ever forget as long as I live. I'm always going to tell this story, and I'm always going to appreciate it. He's always going to be one of my favorite college football players of all time because of this. He showed so much grace and so much class, so much maturity. He said, "I'm a team player." He literally said that in an interview. And when he was benched, Jalen Hurts had a choice and made a choice to have a positive attitude. He celebrated with Tua, the guy who replaced him. When Tua threw a touchdown pass, Jalen Hurts gave him a hug, celebrated him. He was happy for him, happy for his teammate, happy for the rest of his teammates. Alabama won the national championship, and guess what? Jalen Hurts wasn't the star, and he handled it well. He was so mature beyond his years. I went, wow, this guy is incredible. And here's what's interesting. Instead of immediately transferring, Jalen Hurts could have said, I got benched in the national championship game. I'm going to transfer. I'm out. No, he stayed for his third season at Alabama. And what's interesting is that next year, Jalen Hurts played a little bit off the bench. When they were winning by a lot, they'd put in Jalen Hurts at quarterback. But Jalen Hurts really didn't play much football at all until the SEC championship game. Guess what? Once again, about a year later after getting benched, Alabama was playing Georgia again. And this time in the second half, Tua got hurt. And guess who had to come off the bench against Georgia? Not Tua. This time, the guy coming off the bench was Jalen Hurts. Georgia was leading 28-21. Jalen Hurts came back into the game. Came into the game for the first time. He's on the bench. He's a backup. Came off the bench, scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, threw one, ran for one, led Alabama to victory in the SEC championship game over Georgia. Got them into the college football playoff. Beautiful, beautiful, cool story. How odd and how interesting is that? The 2017 season at the end, Jalen Hurts got benched against Georgia. He stayed benched until the next season against Georgia again. He came off the bench and saved the day. That's beautiful. I could not write a script better than that if I tried to. He was the guy who led them back. It's such a cool story, man. And then for his senior season, Jalen Hurts decided to transfer to Oklahoma. Nobody was upset. It was totally understandable. He wanted to be a starter. And he had paid his dues at Alabama, whatever that means. He sure did. He sure did the time. He sure earned the right to leave. Not that you really had to anyway, but he definitely, if anybody did, Jalen Hurts earned the right. And his senior year at Oklahoma, he threw for 3,851 yards, 32 touchdowns. He also ran for another 1,298 yards and another 20 more touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts came second in the Heisman voting behind Joe Burrow, who Joe Burrow deserved to win it. Jalen Hurts was right there knocking at the doorstep right behind him. If Joe Burrow doesn't exist, Jalen Hurts would have won the Heisman Trophy last year. And what's even cooler is Alabama didn't make it into the college football playoff, and Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma did. Now, he got his butt kicked. That's fine. To me, that's just crazy. Your old team doesn't get in. You do? And you go off and you get second to the Heisman voting? Man. How crazy was it going into last year? Two of the Heisman favorites were Tua, who was at Alabama, and Jalen Hurts, who used to be at Alabama. What? That's unbelievable. So Jalen Hurts had a special college football career. It was so cool. He got to be the man at the end. He got to go to Oklahoma, dominate, have a team that believed in him, built around him. I got to watch so many Jalen Hurts interviews where he gave fascinating, mature, interesting answers, and all he showed as a quarterback was the moxie and the attitude of a man on a mission. He was a guy going for it, trying to win a championship, trying to prove to the world how great he was and what he was. And not even, I don't think it was even about proving to people. I think it was about him winning. He was so hungry to win and so hungry to succeed and play well. And he did the work, man. He worked his butt off. So, yeah, Jalen Hurts finished really successfully, being the man. But the thing I will always, always remember and always, always appreciate about Jalen Hurts was the maturity he showed when he was benched. I wish I could show that much maturity when someone took my spot, took my job. I got benched once. I didn't handle it well at all. I was like, no way, I'm not. If you don't want me, I'm out. Fine, bye. Bye. Jalen Hurts didn't do that. He handled things very admirably. And man, I just, that's what Jalen Hurts, we did this segment, career funerals. And we talked about Jalen Hurts, Darren Sproles contributed to the game of football, and Antonio Gates contributed to the game of football. So did Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a shining example for years of how to handle adversity and maturity. That's the legacy Jalen Hurts will leave. Who knows what kind of legacy he will leave in the NFL? I don't know. But the legacy that Jalen Hurts leaves in college football, and the legacy I will always remember Jalen Hurts for, no matter what happens to him in the future, is he was the dude who was mature and handled being benched well. And I will tell that story over and over again for years. Nobody has earned my respect the same way with the same amount of maturity as Jalen Hurts. Here's the thing. It's one thing to be mature when you have time to think about it. Right? Like, everybody's mature in hindsight. You go, yeah, I should have handled it that way. But when you're in the thick of things and you have seconds to react, and then you react with such a kind, gracious heart that Jalen Hurts reacted to. Again, in the national championship, he got benched at halftime. During the third quarter, he was celebrating with his team. He didn't need time to grieve. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he took a moment to breathe. But man, he bounced back quick. Man, his first step was a good step in the right direction with graciousness, with positivity. I cannot believe I am in awe of Jalen Hurts and the maturity he showed after getting benched in the national championship as the starting quarterback of Alabama. I will never again probably see a moment like that in my life, and I will always be grateful for that. So Jalen Hurts, round of applause, man. If you're driving, don't clap. You're driving. Jalen Hurts, thank you so much for your contribution to the game of football. The shining example you are forever. Coaches are going to use you and talk about you in their talks before games and before practices and before seasons. Like, how many coaches in the world are going to refer to Jalen Hurts over the years? So many. And that's because he was a guy with great character who acted with graciousness immediately. Didn't even hesitate to have grace and maturity. Jalen Hurts, thank you so much for your contribution to the game of football.